All right, good afternoon and welcome to our channel. Today we're going to cover a sensitive topic, but I think that, if there's an elephant in the room, it needs to be addressed. And I want to make one thing very clear. I don't have anything against anybody from other countries, okay? Well, whether you hear one way or another. But the American people at this point, the tax base of this country, uh, are dealing with some rather big problems. The only way to solve big problems is to try to cure the problem. And sometimes that might even mean asking people that were previously allowed here to leave. The pandemic, when it started, did something that none of us really might have expected. It created a huge number of problems for the U.S. economy. And, since the pandemic to present, we have been riding in inflation and superinflation for quite a while. We watched the housing market, which was already dwindling, continue to see further the housing stock in the U.S. disappear. And so, I'm going to give you a rather biased opinion. You know, if we've got inflation and we look at causes, there are many things that fan the flame. But it's one thing to fan the flame, but the core or root problem, when you look at the logs in the fire, and there's the fire, and then there's the logs on fire, right? So we could talk tarps all day. Yeah, that does fan the flames. We've got price gouging and other issues out there, and but a lot of tarps do get absorbed. So when we focus more carefully, let's talk about some of the astronomical numbers here. In total, we've got roughly a little over 50 million people from other countries here. That is saturating the housing market, okay? Now, I realize we have investors and corporations that suck up a lot of housing as a financial instrument to be able to make further gains, but that's not overall the big problem here. We were at our limit pre-pandemic in terms of housing, okay? It became exacerbated at 50 million. And then we added an additional, I think through the previous administration, another 4.5 million people. These were not toddlers, babies, and children. Okay. This was an additional 5 million adults from different places, whether permissibly granted to be here or not, that entered our housing market. And so that that is like jet fuel. You're adding in a housing market that already was on the teetering edge. And so we no longer have any available housing. The market is crushed. We've even attempted to sell federal lands to build more, and they've been in a building frenzy for a bit. But with superinflation, and I'm calling it superinflation, that's me coining that, okay? That's not the U.S. government or an economist speaking. When we look at that, we can't sustain 5 million additional people in a housing market, because here's the deal. There's the whole housing market, and then there's the affordable housing market. The affordable housing market is the bottom 20%. Now, all these people from other places, they're not going here to live in a mansion. They're not going to be in middle class America. They're hitting the bottom of the market, and that creates that inflation. And when anybody here wants to Google any of the reasons behind housing crisis, they name a lot of things, but one thing alarmingly ends up being number one across the board, and it's housing unavailability. But they never break it down from there. But if you further look, you digress into that, you'll see that immigration has created a severe issue of housing shortage at the lower percent of the housing market. And that housing shortage also creates artificial rate hikes on rent. Look, if you've got a landlord that had a $500,000 house pre-pandemic, and he was asking $1,000 in rent, and then all of a sudden every rental in town is then sucked up when we throw 5 million additional people into the country, then what ends up happening is we have entitlements. Okay, it's the same thing if you're a coin collector or a card collector. If you put the words limited edition on it, it makes it more valuable. When you limit the number of houses and availability, you make that limited edition. Thus, it accused the landlord, the people that own all these homes, that, hey, my crack house is now worth more. Not only is it worth more in rent, but my $500,000 house during superinflation is now worth 2 or 3 million. I no longer want to rent to low income people because of the value of the house. I'd rather just evict everybody and then put it on the market. This is the biggest giveaway ever. And so we don't have the housing stock anymore. And the problem that we have instrumentally in the US is, you know, 30% of America is low income. We don't have the housing. And then you superinflate the cost from the builders, the materials. And so the core driving force is housing unavailability. And it's not at the high level and mid level, it's at the low level. And so you can't even rent a cardboard box without paying extreme rents. And it's continuing. This year's no exception to the rule. We're gaining 3 points every year. So we're already past affordable. Even HUD, for those that are on Section 8 and want to rent, they can't even keep up. So we're issuing worthless vouchers for people. There's no way for them to rent because it's incentivized at this point. With everybody's got a limited edition house, the few that are left, then why the hell it would be bad business for a landlord to be so stupid as to think, okay, well, let me just keep that low and affordable. When in fact he's probably got the only house available in 10 square neighborhoods, right? So 50 million not born in the US here. We stack another 4.5 million in 4 years. 4.5 million, and most are adults. Most are not wealthy. Most don't have much, and they come here because we are the American hotel. We're the American soup kitchen. We've opened the door. Yeah, there's contribution. I get it. People come here, come to work, live that American dream, right? But here's the problem. We have collapsed the lower market of this. And so our own Americans, red-blooded Americans, don't have anywhere to rent. And if they do have a place to rent, they cannot afford the market conditions. And now it's all up the rail. We're reaching new heights. And so rents are now, it's parabolic. As an example, you look all the way up to about 19 and you'll see that line kind of trickle up. This thing is now straight up. And it's a driving force. And so the housing market has always been a driving factor of almost everything else that creates inflation. Well, shit, if the landlord's getting rich and his crack house is now worth, 3 million and he gets 5,000 rents for that, then the grocery store, the tailor, even the maid wants to be paid $97 an hour now. Everybody's flipped out, tricked out. So here we are with this, and it's not stopping. Oh, thank you, Preppy Princess, for the donation. For those that don't know, I rescue cats. I'm not just a Section 8 consultant. It has some introduction. I am a almost 26-year veteran as a Section 8 consultant at the federal level. I deal with people, vouchers, housing, and landlords. That's what I do. Unlike many of the YouTube channels, I'm not a party clown. I don't make a channel because I'm going to pretend to know something. I do, our company's dealt with over 20,000, though I'm nearing retirement close to the end of the year, with the exception of the cases we already have. So anyways, beyond that, it appears that I have a soft heart for my cats too. Thank God they're not immigrating here. I might have to worry about that, right? So, yeah, the focus of the video is immigration, and because it's a bigger issue we can actually address. Sometimes the country has to shut the gate because now we're reaching a point where we've got to do things for Americans, okay? And sometimes we allow people to come here, we grant that access, and then sometimes, it's just like anything else. Sometimes we have to send you back home, okay? Because it's not going to work out. We have to worry about the people that actually support and pay for this country to run as it has. And so a big portion of this is, through immigration raids for the undocumented and many of the documented. So the administration has made it very clear. The only way we're going to clear a housing market, the first hurdle is dealing with the biggest elephant in the room, and that's Okay, we allowed you to come here with work permits and so on. You didn't do anything wrong, but look, you got to go, man. We're in super inflation, and we can't continue to allow people to flood in and then obliterates the low income housing that we have available in the country, because that addresses both low income individuals and many more middle class families that would prefer to pay less while they try to achieve a higher status, probably. But I mean, that's a core sampling of it. Out of all the things we could consider, what would be the fastest way? And immigration's that. So the video is not about trying to terrorize immigrants or even undocumented. That's not the goal here. The goal is to understand we need to be able to deal with the housing market, and the only way, the quickest and fastest way to address this, to allow affordability, to reduce inflation, and get other businesses and services and products to follow suit and begin to deflate, would mean that we need stable, affordable housing. We cannot do that if we just injected 5 million additional people. Okay, double that number with consideration to those that came here without permission. You got 10 million in the market with a representation of roughly 10 to 15, maybe 20% are children. So we have all these individuals. Even when you see documented, undocumented, there's usually only one or two kids with them. So all these people have entered our low income markets, entire neighborhoods in every city in America. And so we've created artificial inflation of the housing market because we've become a hotel. I mean, does that not make sense to anybody in the room here when we talk about that in housing and how we reach and approach that? Now, there is some culpability and liabilities and investment groups buying up a bunch of houses, but we're watching larger landlords right now, their whole portfolios are dissolving. In other words, a lot of landlords are struggling even to rent. They've actually raised their rent. You see, there's a cap on this. Greed can only drive you so far and go so high in rent before nobody in the market can afford you, or what you're proposing to rent simply doesn't match the characteristics of that category of person. Upper middle class and the wealthy are not going to rent your house, but you're trying to rent it for that. And so that's artificially created by the saturation of the lower market. And so here we are with this big problem. And the only way realistically to address it is everybody on visas got to go. As cold as that sounds, but you've got to go. The U.S. cannot operate again as a soup kitchen or as a hotel. Whether we get it or not, part of being a country is we're able to make our own decisions as a country. And when we have a big problem, sometimes you have to address that in the most unpolite way. That is the only way that we're going to begin to start taking notches off this extremely high inflation. And I'd encourage many of you to look at causes of inflation. Okay. I know this morning alone, over a 3-hour period, I must have read about 30 articles, and everything from people from the U.S. government to the Treasury commenting on the multi faces of inflation. And it all seems to roll back to one thing, and that's the overall housing market in the U.S. It is the most expensive asset typically in the market outside, home ownership, rentals, cars, children. So, using a bit of logic. So I think that the president should continue on the path of asking people to politely go home. We have that right as a country. We have to address our own. For those that are not here or did not ask permission to be in country, well, the circumstances are as they are. You came here without the right to be here, and so you got to go. And so we really need a reduction of about 20 million. Okay. Doesn't even have to be the whole 50 million. That would make a significant enough move to free up a lot of housing. This has been a clogged pipe for about 20 years, and it was reaching that point where the water's no longer draining. Okay. That last injection of immigration really pretty much clogged the U.S. pipes. We really did saturate the market, and because of the hyperinflation out there, builders are left with only being able to build houses that are really expensive, because that's the only way they're going to make a margin on that in terms of profit. In other cases, we're competing in a federal system that wants to issue payment standards to those that need low-income housing, but it's not keeping up with inflation whatsoever. And so what's left on the market is now actually at above market. So as we enter 2026, the only logical and most profound thing I think the president could do is to continue to remove and revoke immigration statuses until we can meet status quo in this country. And again, as cold as that may sound, that is a reality we must face as a nation. Okay, I think this country has given plenty to the world, and I think a lot of other countries have given a lot too. But the reality of it is, we have a responsibility to our citizens, and we have reached the critical point with this. If we're to continue on this path, to have the floodgate open and to continue to drown out low-income housing with immigrants going in, cash paying, and different things, then what we're going to end up with is a unbelievable homeless crisis. And it's going to be a homeless crisis because there are going to be a lot of Americans that simply, even with a Social Security check, a disability check, survivor benefits, railroad benefits, that simply cannot afford anything in the market but a cardboard box. With a lack of funding on other programs could further exacerbate that. And so we have to look at a whole picture. We cannot, we're 2019, 20, so where are we at? 5 years now, 6 years? We can't afford another 4 years of high inflation, okay? There's a point in which the villagers are going to pull out the pitchforks and the torches, okay? We have raised premiums, insurance, the cost of food is nuts. Now I know that chicken is not pricing her eggs every time she lays them at $1 a piece. I went to a restaurant a while back, less than a half a year ago, and a restaurant was trying to charge $3 an egg. Okay, I'm gonna skip the profanity, but I was just like, okay. And even when you go and get a salad these days, they don't cut the egg in half; they cut it 10 times. You get a slice of an egg now, and so we're just talking about an egg. The first time in my life I ever considered actually just buying a chicken in the backyard. And I thought about the cats. And so you put the chicken in the backyard, we're going to end up with fried chicken by 5 p.m. in the afternoon because I just don't think chicken's going to make it, okay? My cats love chicken. So moving on down to comments. There needs to be incentives. Could you explain that, please, if you would? Alicia, Karen good afternoon, Jay. Tiffany Penny, so I'm addressing you guys live. If you're and most of you are on your TV or your cell phone. I was looking at the analytics. It appears most of you guys, I didn't realize so many people use their TV to navigate the internet. I find that kind of awkward because it's so slow to type that way, but apparently you guys love that. Karen good afternoon, Jay. Tiffany Penny. Hi, Jay. Thank you for being a good person. I don't know that I'm a good person. I have my days, Sue, I appreciate your time and preparing for us for your expertise. I like to be as prepared for the future as possible. We're all preparing for 2026, and none of us are foolish little girls here. Everybody understands that more changes are coming next year. We spoke about housing, inflation, for those either super low income that are receiving housing vouchers, food stamps, SNAP benefits, and so on. There are many changes across all federal agencies. This was a beginner. This was the opening volley for 2025. You don't honestly think that President Donald Trump is just going to walk back in the White House on New Year's Day and go to sleep, do you? This was just the opening volley, so we should expect more turmoil. And so now you're starting to understand why he's targeting specific things. If his leaders and the people that are talking to him look at it the same way that I have, and you're sitting in the White House as a president, and you're looking for the number one cause of inflation, and it turns out that most conversations lend back to housing or affordable housing. It doesn't have to be low income, but affordable. And then you find out that we have rampant and out of control immigration, that we've been going along all the way, but now the system is completely clogged and is creating super inflation. Then we have no choice. I don't care if you've got a visa from China to make computer chips here. You've got to pack your shit and go home. We cannot keep you here. You cannot continue to rent on a market. We need this stuff for our seniors or disabled or veterans, and we need it for people that simply don't have a PhD. that aren't going to make 200,000 a year. We need a balanced market. If we don't balance the market, then you get what we have. And here's the problem with inflation. It's not going to be that might be the cause at the lower end of the market of housing and affordability. And you think, oh, I've got money, and that shouldn't be a problem for me. Well, it's going to be a problem when you walk in the store. So what affects the low affects the high. Okay. So even if you're wealthy and you've got it all, you want to continue to walk in there. Your Gucci slippers yesterday were 300. Would you like them to be 900? Then you're in the game with the rest of us. Okay. Housing affects everybody, even if it's only rationally about a portion of the market. And so while nobody really wants to put anybody out the country or be mean to, foreign people, but what other choice is there? Shall we move the American people to the street and then move everybody else in housing? Shall we continue to go to the store and get robbed blind? Many of you argue tarps. Yeah, again, there's a difference between the logs and the gasoline and starting the fire, and then possibly President Trump fanning it a bit with tarps, but most of that's been absorbed through the late process to the store. Now, the actual cause of stores is they're riding the same choo-choo as everybody else. It's called greed and fear. You as the American public have the fear of inflation, and greed is what comes to the store. They're all clamoring for your business right now, and they're very, very disappointed. Everybody's walking around with a crumpled dollar because nobody wants to get fucking robbed for Christmas. I mean, we've got turkeys that are escalated now to $200. You've got little lunatics on Etsy that'll cook you a turkey for $300. Now, this is the same person that couldn't even get a GED out the bubblegum machine, and now they've decided they are a turkey basting expert, and they're hoping that you're going to purchase their $400 cookies. Just some of the insanity that we've convinced even homeless people. They if we hire them to help us out with lawnmower, they now need $170 an hour. The maid needs $400 an hour. I mean, it's inflation over everything. We now have people that barely an IQ of 3 that now are commanding prices. They think they're a dentist. And so the delusion rolls on. And all this shit is fired. The stove is filled with a housing market that's literally on fire. And the only thing we can do fairly easy without having to redesign the whole thing and build a lot of shit is just put people out. That's it. The party's over. You lead everybody to the door. Hey, look, hey man, we've enjoyed having you here. Thank you for picking the oranges. Thank you for making computer chips. Now get the fuck out. Okay, we need the housing. Just be upfront. You don't think China wouldn't put your ass out if you was over there? We created an inflation in their market. You don't think Russia wouldn't put your ass out? They would. They wouldn't even ask. They'd fly you on a plane with no air conditioning. You'd be in a cargo plane. They'd drop you out midair. At least we're being nice enough to put handcuffs on you, and at least you get some parting gifts, a free roll of socks. Shit, man. At least you go out in style with us. You get a meal on the wheels in the plane. You think Russia's going to serve you dinner? No, of course not. They stick you in a dog cage and throw you about 20,000 feet into the field. Okay. I know that's extreme, and I'm kind of joking with you guys, but you see my point. We're actually being pleasant about it. You get a ride in the air-conditioning police unit. You think you can get that in Germany? Well, I'm not going to say Germany, Russia. Okay, so look, my God, man, look, just take the free ticket and get the fuck out, okay? We're offering you money to leave. What country does that? Hey, you get $1,000 if you leave peacefully. You think Russia and China are going to pay to get out? They will beat your teeth out your head, deliver you in a body bag to the U.S., drop you off at 30,000 feet. We're offering fucking checks for people to leave, and we still can't get them to go. We need this house. If you're not going to get the house, we're going to burn it down, okay? Look, we need affordable housing back. You got to go home, okay? Wherever it is. Egypt, China, Japan, you got to go home. It's been nice. We have a lot of champagne. We enjoyed New Year's with you. Get your shit, pack it, go, okay? Because we can't do this anymore because nothing's going to be affordable for anybody. And, another call out is this rental market when it comes to short-term rentals. Every city, the president needs to get directly involved in that. This shit of renting out homes on What's that? Anybody want to comment on the websites where you can rent a house or a room real quick? What's it called? Anybody in the live chat want to tell me that? I can't think of the name, but the short-term rentals, we need to ban that. Okay. You've got little lunatics that are renting out their house as a vacation home. Okay. And so everybody's got into this. And so we're depriving literally the American public of any housing because we're trying to scalp and rip everybody fucking off. So it only serves the wealthy. This is why government constantly has to intervene, because if you let our little capitalist ass go too far, then we're going to rent everything. If you don't believe me, give Silicon Valley another 3 years and they're going to rent you your fucking coffin. And that coffin will have a note on it for the next 6 generations. Okay? You'll long be dead. Your children's grandma's great brother's aunt's sister will still be paying for that fucking rental. And let me tell you something else. When you stop paying on the coffin, they'll dig you up and throw you in the dumpster. Don't think that ain't coming. We're reaching a point in this country where we rent everything. Okay, we're not going to own anything. You don't see that? Everything's a rental. If you buy something, then they rig it where you can't even fix it. Okay, you got to go see the company, and they like 20x the price. They prefer to rent everything. They rent you teeth pretty soon. You go to the dentist. Oh, did you need a tooth? Well, that's fine. We'll rent that at $100 a month. How long would you like that? 10 years? Next thing you know, mom will snaggle tooth because they done come and repossess her tooth. That's the direction we're going. Okay. Say I'm lying. So we're just looking at all this, including this housing market, and it's just insanity. And, how many ways can we address it? To completely shut it down, we'd have to be a socialist country. So it's easy. If we're going to have an immigration issue and too many people here, it's easy. Plane tickets, time to go. Because we need the housing stock. If we can deflate the market, that will allow builders to be able to build at an affordable cost. And once their materials go down, then they can come back and build for both the wealthy and those that are middle America and even low income. But not when we charge $58 a board. So the only way that builders can profit is if they only sell homes to the rich. So it's a vicious cycle we're stuck in. And we're stuck in it for 6 years. Okay. I don't care who you put in the White House. This is a monumental task to make this shit end. Throwing more money at it ain't going to help it either. A lot of you are already talking about, I'd like a stimulus check. Do we really need some more of that so we can get into superinflation and hyperinflation? So you take the stimulus check. Pre-pandemic, you could have bought 200 items. After the pandemic, you can buy 100. Give out another check, and guess what? You could only buy 50 things, but it felt good because you had $2,000. Well, your $2,000 is only worth 500 now. And the higher inflation goes, that'll be better because that $12 toaster, by the time it leaves China, everybody price gouges all the way to the Walmart aisle. That $12 toaster is now 180. Okay. Your fucking toast, you might as well go to Waffle House because your toast is going to be $3.99 every time you hear the thing pop. You're renting a toaster. All right, going back. I digress, man. So we should expect that we're going to be holding more Macy parades next year. There are going to be people that are going to be wearing badges and uniforms and and they're going to be doing house checks next year. And unfortunately, if you've overstayed your visit in the American hotel, okay, then you've got to go, Flo. We're done. You got to go back home. The market can no longer support any additional. I think it's a great idea that America is going on so long to want to allow so much immigration to populate our country. We're fully populated. We're full now. Okay. It's turning into the DMV. We're now popping a ticket as an American and we're waiting. We're going to wait ourselves to death if we continue to add more and more people in the country and we do not have the available housing. I think that's common sense. So, body, soul, rights, time to get the stepping. That's right. Preppy Princess, I'm wheezing. Whoa. I'm sorry to hear that. You must have been around one of my cats. Airbnb, that's the one. So we're renting houses out like that. So let's see, some prep renting out the garage, of course. They're renting everything. They look, people rent the broom closet now. Alicia, the world has changed exponentially over the last 20 years. It's so weird and scary. It really is. Because I know one thing, I'm not that far from hitting my 62 birth, being 62. And you don't think I don't worry about you guys price gouging the shit out of me? You know, then what? When my income's limited, the very people I'm talking to in this video will be my landlord, possibly. I worry because look, greed's a bitch. It will suck the life out of everything, including your community. And so I worry about these things. All right. So moving on from there, the world, let's see, I keep clicking the wrong spot. The world has changed exponentially. Yep. Is there any hope right now? Well, there's always hope. I mean, look, we're just focusing on one topic. Okay, so don't have a meltdown or a psychiatric moment. We're just addressing the elephant in the room, the rental market and housing. Okay, there's lots of things that create problems, but this one's pretty big, and I'm not certain any more than the next person as to whether or not we're going to spend an additional year dealing with hyperinflation, a lack of housing, and then culminating into a crisis. We've been in a crisis for 6 years. I mean, we've been in it so long, we're growing gray hair. When do we exit? This may be a circumstance where it may take several U.S. presidents and several terms to even get this shit cooled off. But one thing's for sure, I'm about ready to put a glass bubble over the U.S. because we're all just getting ripped off with this. We've got to have the additional housing, and ordering for the market conditions to change and lower, we've got to get the price and cost of materials down, and builders interested in building low income, which means they need to turn a profit. All of this is connected. One leans on the other, and so the only other options we have is to remove the cause, the additional cause, or what's tipping the iceberg. Moving on from there, Hope Bros, we have some entire blocks in San Jose now vacant as illegals are starting to self-deport. Well, that's good. Take the money, man. Go down to the casino, go down to the restaurant, have you a couple whiskeys, man. Go enjoy it. There's home. Home is not here. Okay, the American dream, we've already sold that. Now it's American inflation. If you like to do the American inflation dream, we can offer that, but not anytime soon, maybe in 2099. Okay, we're taking applications in 2099. All right, Cutie Pie. Hi, Jay. How are you today? There is always hope. Well, that's what we like to tell ourselves when we don't want to face reality. There's always rainbows, unicorns, and fuzzy thoughts. Okay, you can tell yourself that shit all the time, but look, reality is just as cold as everything else. True Blue You. I just got here and I heard a little earlier that you're saying that housing is no longer going to be available in 2026. Look, Ben, you need to go down to Radio Shack, buy some new batteries for your hearing aid. I didn't say that, okay? I watch you guys come up with the most colorful shit in my live chat. Oh, he just said everything's open and no vouchers, or he just said there's not a house left in America. Where do you guys dream this shit up at? Sometimes I feel like I'm talking to somebody in their 90s and they're just peeling the battery out the pack for the hearing aid. So I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to be a little bit friendly and also funny. Moving on from there, let's see. Body Soul. I know people are allowing to prop out an RV in the back. Well, I'll tell you, it's a good example. This year, the neighborhood, there's 10 acres here that I'm on, and then you go down around the street. I've watched a large number of homes on unrestricted lots all along this 10 acres, started with a house, and many more have built additional small apartments and even rental trailers. And what that's indicating or queuing us all in for is people are trying to maximize as much livable space and as many buildings as they can on their private land to help out friends and family. Because the market's so crunched that grandpa is now, instead of having a rose garden, he's got his grandchildren, his children, and his children's children all living in, storage, basically converted storage sheds on his own 2 acre lot, and so I've seen a whole lot of that because the families like to stick together. And if you're able to build multiple buildings on your property to help set it up, and of course, when the family graduates that circumstance, they're able to move out on their own, and then you have investment opportunities. You now have 3 rentals and plus your house on this 2 acre lot. So there's a lot of ways that plays out as housing goes on the open market and then retracts back to the closed market. Body sold 1980. I already read that one. True Blue, no apologizing. Continuum of care is going to be available next year for disabled. Well, yes, for disabled and seniors, 62 and over, yes. Sue, those tiny houses look like they may be an opportunity. I believe they are. If you're a landlord and you're considering investing in low-income housing or making low-income housing, proceed cautiously with a property. If you've already got infrastructure and land in place, then do it that way, okay? What you don't want to do is hop out there with your neck on the line and buy 2 and 3 houses and hope the market can support that. Now, I know we're saying there's not enough housing on the market, but you do also understand there are other market conditions that not all areas of the U.S. need the houses. So, yeah, we've got a nationwide problem overall with low-income housing, but it's extreme more in some areas than others. In other words, you can find lots of low-income housing, but they're in the wrong areas. So it's not balanced. This is not a layer of butter across the country. So be careful testing the market to understand whether or not it can support, the additional housing and whether or not you're going to be able to meet your occupancy. Otherwise, you're lodged in a bad investment. All right, moving on from there. Peace out, y'all. Lollipops, rainbows, unicorns, and looks like a dog or a cat. So you've already won me on that deal. I know people. Okay, so we already been through that one. Gene, just this week, the county came to my street because trailers with people living on them on a residential street. Well, let's be honest. The whole rental market's tied up. We have a housing shortage, which equates to a housing crisis, and so there's not enough of the low income housing available on the market. And then following suit, what's the cheapest thing left on the market? We've already gone and rushed through the boat market, living in a boat on a river and on a lake. So you have all these travel RVs. When the market fell out under that this year and last year, it made a lot of really nice and expensive RVs cost very little. And they're large enough with sink stoves and everything else in them. So it made an ideal option. The problem that nobody considered is with those two market conditions perfectly together in California and its problem of affordability, and then you have the bottom fall out on the RV market was a perfect match. But nobody was expecting they were going to park 1 million RVs through all the counties throughout California. But it was rather ingenious because they house yourself. But then RVs are temporary. They're not designed to handle year-round use. And so pretty soon, what we're going to see is a really big disaster for that market because, you're going to park 80,000 RVs in California. Look, it won't be long for those people to have open bonfires in the street, man. San Diego, I got to tell you, man, you guys got to wake up with that. Y'all going to end up torching half of California when that shit catches on fire. You really got to stop. I mean, they've got RVs parked everywhere. It won't be long before they got RVs parked in the tree up there perched like a bird. It's, I get it. I get why people do it. It's the last way to get some affordable comfort. But Lord have mercy, they're putting RVs in the trees and everything. And I just got help the little souls with that. Meanwhile, we got all our immigrants. They're all hiding under the Christmas tree, man. They're all hiding in the bushes. And so everything's out of whack. I wake up and I'm not sure what the answer is anymore. It seems like we have to deal with each area of the nation differently in order to solve this problem. I mean, we've got people with their head in the sand. We got politicians that, You could tell them the asteroid's coming to kill us, and they would deny that there's anything in the sky. It's just so magical living in America. You can live or die by the politics here. Let me move back to these live comments while I laugh myself to death. Gene, we already did you. Sue, thank you for thanking me. Gene, again, now illegal. Oh, is it? You don't honestly think people give a shit whether they're legally in that camper or not, right? They don't care, man. Look, it costs the county more money to sit there and move that double wide off the street. Tombstone, I'm a little confused. I'm conflicted on the immigration issue. I think we all are all conflicted. Nobody would prefer to have to do this. You know, it's rather brutal. But look, make a choice. When you're in the jungle, when you're in Vietnam, and you've got people shooting a machine gun over your hairline, right? You got two choices. You know, it's either you're going to fight back and do something about the circumstances, or you're going to let them shoot you down. Extreme example, but I mean, look, what else can we possibly do? We have to start removing people out of the country. If that means go after the ones that shouldn't be here first, and then after that, you know, what we're doing presently, we're revoking visas. We need the additional housing, or we're going to see a new version of inflation that's above hyper and super that's could land us, you know, another 5, 10, or 10 years into nationwide inflation that nobody wants. Okay. And so there has to be an end to the party. Okay. There has to be an end. I mean, I don't care. We got to park a cop at every stop, every road. You know, we got to put a glass bubble over America. We've got to do something because this can't go on much longer. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to have to lay away everything. I mean, you're going to end up at Walmart. You're going to put all your shit away. You're not going to be able to afford it anymore. You'd be paying a mortgage on your own drawers, you know? Nobody wants that. Muskogee Land, watching again. Good. I make videos. You would think I was a Mormon as many videos I make. I'm trying to get every nickel out of YouTube. Muskogee Land, watching again. Shirley Griffin. Jay's, your videos make my day. They make mine too. Sometimes I laugh, sometimes I cry, but you know, at the end of the day, when I log off, there ain't nothing but good old reality waiting on me. And probably 2 or 3 sassy cats that want more shit out of me. So my cats, let me tell you something, my cats, you got to love them. You could be having a seizure and a partial stroke all at the same time, and them little fuckers will stand over you and still demand treats. They don't give a shit. They know you love them, but I mean, it's like, hey, do your job. So you get what you get. All right, Shirley Griffin, Jay, your videos make my day. Sherry Brun, I will definitely take a tiny house. Just need some guidance. I think tiny house is a good deal, and if you can find the right state and county, look, an acre of land, even a half acre of land would be enough to get you up and started, and you put a little RV on there. It's not ideal for extreme long periods, but look, you get an acre of land out somewhere in Arkansas for two or $3 grand, right? As long as you got a road out there and some utilities, and you park that little old, you know, these RVs, these really nice RVs now are going for $3,500. They're giving them away. Park that out there. Now you can't do that for the next 50 years, but I mean, you see the point. Well, there's a will, there's a way, you know, and I'm testing that theory myself because my retirement includes me getting in one of these damn RVs, which are travel trailers, with me and the cats. I need the RV because of the cats. No hotel is going to put up with a bunch of cats bobbing and weaving around the place. So what are my options? Hotels ain't going to put up with it, so we'll go in the travel trailer. And I'm a big proponent of off-grid because we needlessly, as Americans, pay for a lot of utilities, water, and all these things. You have solar, you have wind power. You know, learning how to be a gardener, grow a little bit of your food, you don't have to grow it all, but see, disconnect a bit. So a lot of that is what we should be considering. If things get this difficult and you're that low income, then, you know, you should be trying to achieve efficiency as quickly as you can to not have electric bill, to not have a water bill. You don't want a water bill, then you drill a well. You don't want to have an electric bill in an RV, then probably 6 to 10 solar panels at 440 watts will achieve that. And though those panels won't last forever, Well, imagine not having an electric bill for the next 10 years, right? So you're not indentured to the government. So all these videos kind of in lieu, we should all be thinking carefully because if it's done right, in the end, your only real cost will be just your actual cost. We have to disconnect. Thus, or you continue on the path you're on, and you'll rent your own coffin. So, there, for a lot of you, whether you're an immigrant or illegal alien or an American, disconnecting from government should always be an ultimate goal of ours. Self sufficiency, okay. And the other thing is the better way to handle that to be able is to not be a survivor, and that's what a lot of people are. As a Section 8 consultant dealing at the federal level myself, and now retiring, look, you can't. A lot of my clients are just surviving. It's not even enjoyable to be alive. They would have a better time jumping off a bridge. I could just tell. So, if you know you're at a stalemate in life and you're not going to have a high income, then all that time that you're spending watching as the world turns on the tube, on the TV, invest some time looking at solar. Just test my theory. Look at solar, water, drilling for water. Look at what else can you do? You got internet, do that. Your phone has it. Look at ways to disconnect and get out there. Now, a lot of you argue, oh, I'll be near my family. Well, you have to decide, do you want to survive or do you need to be up your family's ass? Look, when people came to this country originally, they were riding horses and carriages clear across the West. Okay. Nobody gave a shit about whether or not they was going to be near their family. They were simply doing what they had to do. And the result of not carefully planning meant they could die in that process transversing the U.S. We need to give a little bit and learn how to get back at the roots of things where we're more self-sufficient. And that's how we end up in this because we are a consumer society. The U.S. powers the whole world because we need to buy every nifty little thing. You forgot to get out of those habits of have. Too much shit. I'm drowning in all the shit I've bought in the last 5 years. All that money could have been spent otherwise. I woke up finally. I don't do it anymore. Anything I deal with is for the love, care, and enjoyment of my cats. They're my kids. They hold the same value. Okay. Next to that value are the people that I help. The 80 and 90-year-old men and women, disabled children, and other people that need housing, the people that have food insecurity. God didn't create everybody with 190 IQ. Not everybody has. The greatest lie mom ever told their children was, you can be anything you want to be. That was the greatest lie ever told because you can't. There's so many circumstances that go into play. Intelligence, IQ, opportunity. So sometimes we got to create your own opportunity. That's the very basis of the video outside of how do we fix a damn low-income housing crisis. It's very simple. Remove the people that are creating the crisis for the large part. Now, there are many other elements that affect this crisis, but if that's the elephant in the room, the most logical path is remove them. That's what else can we do? It's not supposed to feel good. When you tell your aunt that drinks too much to get the fuck out your Christmas party, you mean just that. When you've got people from other countries that are here, whether legal or not, and we can no longer have the Christmas party, then it's time to go. It's too much. The burden's too great. We finally reached a point where the burden's too great, and we just cannot do that. And as I've always said, America is not a hotel or a soup kitchen. We have played that role vitally for many times. Anytime Russia and China want to step up and play the game, go ahead. We cannot do everything for the whole world. Not that we do, okay? We're very choosy in how we screw other countries, but you see my point. It's time for us to digress and focus on the core of what America is and its people. And to do that, we're going to have to sadly ask people to move on. That's the only way to get along with this. That's the only way to get out of inflation because one problem creates another, right? Well, that's based on my own life, my own experience, my own professional experience. You don't have to like or even enjoy it. But I think that a lot of the conversation had throughout the video today does support many parts of that. And it certainly gives you food for thought for the day. So whether you like it, hate it, or enjoy it, that's for you. So, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. I'm going to take a look at our comments, make sure I haven't left anybody not addressed. I want to be polite. Living off grid is a sensible option. Thank you, Tombstone. True Blue, I miss just living life, just down worrying about it. Nothing would give me greater pride to be able to sit out there with around 200-foot towering pines with my cats panning for gold in a river that probably ain't been drank out of since the 1800s. Okay, just me, wildlife, and not have to deal with city assholes. To be frank with you, just go out there and just be like they were in 1800s. Of course, I get to go back to the shower and hot water. They probably didn't. Okay, but I've already lived. I've already had the life sucked out of me in the city. Okay, what I'd like to do is end my life where I experience the other half of what America has to offer in its beauty, its nature, and it's not untainted by human beings for the most part. That's quite enjoyable for me at this point. So I'm not trying to isolate or be an extremist, but I'd like to take that RV across the west and east coast where there's not great population centers and see what this old planet has to offer before I die. Okay. Otherwise, when I die, then I'm going to have to ask whoever I'm with at that time, or if I'm up or down, excuse me, do you have a national forest I can visit? All right, so I digress from there. Joseph R. I sure hope Trump sends a $200 check and get a piece of that land. That would be an excellent choice. It'd even be a great start. Anybody, anybody that's interested, go look at the cost of RVs. You can get a 20-foot RV and connect to most little SUVs with a V6. Those RVs used to be 30 and 40,000. They're literally giving these things away. Some as low as $3,000. I mean, how many times in American history will that happen? Well, the market completely collapses on it, and it provides a house on wheels that looks like a metropolitan apartment on Fifth Street. I mean, pool, shower, whole thing, all in there. And you can pull it with your car, your truck. And the market fell out, and now all the stuff they can't sell. It's the last remaining form of housing that hasn't been strangled by the American businessmen. But once they realize everybody's using this as a form of housing, you can bet Silicon Valley will get involved in the RV business and then screw us out of the last possible way to be housed for those of you that are super low income. But until that happens, look at the market. You might be closer to driving off into the sunset than you think. That's my hope for all of you. And for those of you that are immigrants, whether legal or illegal, consider that in your own country. You know, there's a dream. You have a dream in your own country. Try to live in it there. Okay. If you messed up, switching countries isn't going to help you. Whatever you've done wrong or however things are going for you, there's a place in your country, and why not be with your own people? You know, I understand there are wars and there are people that dictate, but look, every country has a portion where they're able to go out and live life. I'd advise you go back to your people that love and enjoy you the most, that are going to care for you, and the people that you're going to enjoy being around. You want to be around a bunch of stuffy assholes from America, anyways. Besides that, our politicians only work 1 month out of the year, and you might find the American dream is the American nightmare. You have to have special training to be in our country, okay? You could get shot in traffic, treated badly at the gas station. You know, we're a mixed up country, but you're going to do better. All of us do better to be where we came from, you know, around the people we care and enjoy. So I encourage you to consider going home. Live your best life there. If you got a tough situation in one place, then look at the other areas. Countries aren't small, they're big, and there are lots of things out there. You don't need to walk across 13 countries to get here. I can tell you, it's not the grass is never greener on the other side. You just think it is. Okay. I'm going to prove that there's grass greener on the other side. It's simple. When you move from the city to the forest, I damn well know it's greener. If it's not, that's it. Me and the cats are going to drive to the largest bridge we can find, and we're going to jump off because I'm done. Okay. If I get out in the forest and I still have city folks out there bitching, moaning, honking horns, then that's it. We're done. Okay. That's a wrap. Otherwise, I will move my ass into a national forest because I am truly fucking done with city living. Okay, it ruins people to the core. You know, we turn into a bunch of monsters. We're crammed in here like rats in a cracker box. Okay, it's bad. It sucks the soul out of you. And then we get to a point where we just stop even caring about humanity. It's just like a rat race. I don't want that shit anymore. It's poisoning me. It's poisoning my cats. It's poisoning any future of being happy. And so I'd rather connect with nature. So what? If a fucking grizzly bear comes out and slices my head off, then oh well, at least I died in the fucking forest. Okay, the bear didn't have any problem. He was just hungry. I don't blame him. Touching my cat now, it's a different story. I'll come back to life. You want to see a guy fight a polar bear? I'll do it. All right. So after all that phantasm, Alicia, you have to live alone in a trailer or you would otherwise commit homicide. People do that when they got nice homes. You ever wonder why the wealthy kill themselves? They don't make friends easily. Oh, Alicia Nelson's family. Olson Sharon, I'm out of family. When mom passed in January, that's it. I don't have any other living relatives left. Okay. It's me and the cats. Okay. I'm a bit worn out, so I don't think any women are probably going to want to pick up on my current travels around the country. I might find one. Who knows? So, moving on from there, Sharon, I was fortunate to find you online. I was at my wits' end, and your advice set me back and thinking. So that's the goal of a lot of these videos is to think. For some of you, I want you to think. For others, I would like for you to, to open up and feel again, to sympathize, to empathize, but don't do it to the detriment of the American people. Okay, I just want some of you to wake up, to feel yourself a bit in the inside and consider the alternatives. Don't be drowned by this world. We only are here for a limited time. I gave you guys, and this will be the last thing I got to say. Okay, I promise. Out of all the things that are around you, besides your children, you have your pets and your animals, your dogs and your cats and your birds and your snakes, and some of you even love spiders. But these are the things that every day that continue to be around you, that love you, that care for you, that enjoy your company without condition. And yet, your pets, for many of you, are the last things you consider spending money on and even doing things for. You take them for granted. Meanwhile, you will roll and tussle and allow people in the city to absolutely ruin the core of what you are. And then you never think for even a fucking moment of the one thing that treats you the best, that you give the least. Okay? Even your kids. Don't ever forget that. Because of all the misery in the world, these animals, for some of you, they're just probably the only reason you're alive. And so, if you're going to invest your time and your health and your state of mind into anything, do it in your children and in your pets, okay? Because you don't owe this fucking world anything. Okay? You don't own anything that don't love you back anything. That job, that boss, that asshole in traffic, that Macy's, that new Gucci watch, that shit don't love you. It's not gonna light up and love you when you get home. And so we live in this material delusional world, and this will all play out for Christmas while we silently regret Christmas Day passing, because then we go back loveless. But we've forgotten that lonely cat or dog or bird we have that we've done so little for, but yet it's given you everything. So wake up, understand what the core of you is, and if it's time to go, go. Don't let the city kill you. Don't let the suburbs kill you. We're so busy trying to be like everybody else. It's like little cookie cutter people. They all got to get married, all got to be in the little neighborhood, do the same shit the same way. We're so predictable, the stores are able to sell the same shit repeatedly to us. I don't even want none of that anymore. I'm literally trying to sell everything I have because I was convinced of this delusion until I woke up. Now I see the world for what it is, and that's the only thing that I'm interested in is what's untouched by man. Getting out in the open, all gritting a bit, not being an extremist, not being delusional, just reconnecting to the world that our ancestors have always had and understood. We've lost that. We're now connected to our toys and Cheeto bags. Okay. And we put our pets as the last thing, considering that they put us first. So think about those things today when you go sit down. Get your priorities fucked up. You're no longer seeing clear. And before you know it, you'll die. You'll show in your face. It even shows in my face what the world does to you. Consider other things, okay? It's okay to feel implied guilt about immigrants, whether you're on one side or the other. They are humans. You're supposed to feel terribly about it. But at the same time, it's not our responsibility as a nation to care for people, just like it's their country should be taking care of them. We cannot rescue the whole planet, okay? Just like I can't rescue the some 600 million cats on the planet. I tried, but I will have a mental breakdown doing it. I had to stop. The hardest addiction of my life was for me to stop caring. That's extremely hard. You know how many cats I drive by I wish I could rescue? But you have to set a limit because we'll all be living under the bridge if I go too far with it. So that being said, now that we've had Sunday school, moral lesson, ethics, housing lessons, and everything else, I think kindergarten, I can let it out. Again, I've enjoyed having you guys. We'll see you again tomorrow. At least I'll continue to make a lot of videos as we get through the holidays, try to keep things cheerful. Okay. For now, enjoy your day.